Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Sara Kovach on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from New Jersey, as I'd like to pronounce it in my imitation of that accent. She's a three-time IFBB Fitness Pro Olympian, as well as a three-time Arnold Classic Pro Fitness International competitor, and a two-time IFBB Pro champ. And she's also a fitness pro, if you didn't get that out of all the other accolades that she's had on. But she's a jack of a lot of trades. She's been around the block a lot, and she's here to share her health and fitness journey, and how she's able to maintain that while having a career too. And that's something that I really think needs to be talked about more on this podcast. But most importantly, she is our current guest. Sara, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Truly appreciate it and love any opportunity to talk about fitness.
Well, I gotta ask first of all, because I love to torture myself. What is the weather like in New Jersey today?
You know what? It's actually not too bad. I think we're at about 40-ish, but sunny, nice. I think we're getting over the ridiculous snow, winter, blizzardy period. Although March, it has happened. So, but yeah, it's been pretty cold.
Okay, yeah, so this might be the only time that I'm ever going to have a guest from the East Coast on where it's actually warmer here than it is there. So I'm going to enjoy it a little bit. I mean, it does say it's going to be like a high of 64 tomorrow, so that's going to be, I delayed my other podcast that I was going to have that day because I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm sitting inside when it's that warm. But yeah, being a Minnesotan, I know it's probably going to be, like a week from now, we're probably going to have another 2 feet of snow on the ground. So, you got to enjoy it while it lasts. But before I get into that, because I don't want to depress all of our viewers from the South and just have them be like, okay, this is just too depressing to listen to, I don't want to listen to this anymore.
Right?
Why don't you first off give us your backstory and what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape, and how that led to becoming a fitness pro, and just your whole journey into that.
Yeah. So first, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I moved to New Jersey a few years ago. But so if you know anything about the history of bodybuilding, the sport itself, it originated pretty much the NPC, at least our league, the Premier League, the NPC IFBB originated in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with Mr. Jim Mannion. And I grew up in Carnegie, which is the town that is the current headquarters. It's always been the headquarters for the league. And so I grew up around the sport. All of the gyms that I went to as a little girl, in my teenage years, um, a lot of people were involved in bodybuilding at the time. My father was an amateur bodybuilder. So I really got into the sport. I was a gymnast, like the first half of childhood. And then I got into some all-star cheerleading. I kind of dabbled in, I also ran track. I've always been athletic. And I got into fitness because, like I said, my dad was bodybuilding. Um, in the amateur league, and my first job ever was at a gym. And at that gym, Gary Udit, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's one of the IFBB league, chairman and judges, and he was a personal trainer there. And he was a friend of my father's from bodybuilding. And because I had that short, like muscular, stocky physique, everybody was always saying, you should try fitness, you should get into fitness. And um, so I actually did as a teenager. I started competing. I competed in 1999 for the first time at the NPC Pittsburgh show. So that the big show, now they have a pro league portion of it, but back then it was just an NPC amateur show. And the first time I competed there, I was 13 years old. And of course, I got blown away and like smoked by every competitor. But it was really just the point of, it was just something for me to do. And of course, I was really good at the routine round because I was only 13 and I was in gymnastics and cheerleading. And that was kind of the point. It wasn't really to get it was just to get out and perform. Um, and so after that, I dabbled in, they had some NPC like teen nationals and different things like at that time. And so I did a lot of those when I was like 16, 17, but I didn't take it, I was doing it for fun. Wasn't like a serious thing. It was just kind of for me something. I was in love with performing basically from doing sports, and any chance I could get to like get out there. I wanted to do it. So I did a lot in my teenage years. Like I said, I think every show I did, when I competed in like the open division, when I was 19, 20, 21, I got straight last place across the board every time. Um, because I didn't have the physique. I had the routine round, so but that's really how I got into it. Was just honestly, it was kind of in my blood, I feel like. I was born and raised in Carnegie. I was around it, and I loved it. I loved it, ever since I was a little girl. I actually performed. This is just kind of a random story, but it correlates to what I do now. In 1997, I was a part of we called it it was like a junior fitness show team was the name of it, and we used to go to little like parks and events in our town and perform like a group fitness routine. And it was really to just inspire like youth to get involved in being healthy and do exercise. And in 1997, we had the opportunity to perform at the Olympia. And it was at the Byam Theater in New York City in '97. I was 11 years old, and we did just like a little group opening like performance. They gave us like a little plaque that said like, you participated in the Olympia. But I will say that moment is probably what I remember that to this day. I'm 35 now. And so I was 11 years old, and I remember being at the Olympia and right away being like, I want to do this. I want to be in this one day. And so that's kind of how it started. Um, Pretty cool. I eventually, when I got into my college years, so I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I really was aspiring to be. I wanted to go to medical school. That was my thing. I was like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a neurologist. That was my big like. So I kind of put fitness on the back burner. Not that I didn't exercise in college, but I sort of focused on my school, focused on, I did a few contests. I actually dabbled and did like Fitness America. Again, like didn't place well. I did some other NPC shows when I was in my early 20s. Um, but yeah, my feedback was always that my physique wasn't really there. And I know it was because it goes back to, I wasn't really taking it all that serious. I was sort of, um, I know for lack of a better, I was half-assing it. I was kind of, I wanted to do it, but like Monday through Friday, I would be good with my diet. And then on the weekends, I was in college. So I was going out, drinking, partying. And I would try to make up for it with extra workouts and things. And I mean, honestly, on show day, it showed that I was not dedicated. So I punished myself for quite a few years, going and trying to do it 50%. And I learned the hard way that that just is not possible.
Well, I gotta say, so were you at the University of Pittsburgh the same time that Larry Fitzgerald was?
I was around that time. I graduated from Pitt in 2000, spring of 2009. I think he might have been either right after me, but around then.
I just gotta say it because he literally grew up a town away from me. So that's why. So that's why. As soon as you said University of Pittsburgh, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's yeah." Larry Fitzgerald was there. So yeah, that's awesome. And the moment that you said that I realized or that I read that you were a fitness compare, I was like, "Yeah, she either probably started in gymnastics or dance, but you did both because that's out of all the fitness pros that I've had on, that's normally a good start for them because yeah, you love that performing thing. Which I mean, some of the compares that I have on, I mean, they almost want to throw up when they walk on that stage. But then other people are just born, just want to be able to perform in front of others and that's amazing. And the fact that I mean, you get to say that you were at the Olympia at the age of 11. I mean, when I was at 11, I was just playing video games in my parents' basement, basically, and playing baseball. So that's really all I had to offer. So yeah, that is just absolutely incredible. But when you started to really take things seriously, what was that? Was there a certain moment that you really just had that switch in your brain where you're just like, I want to actually start to take things seriously in the fitness community and really, try hard at these competitions? Was there anything that made you do that, or was it just after a while you're just like, hey, you know what? I actually want to see how far I can take this?
Yeah, so no, that's a great question because what actually happened was I ended up, the last 2 years of college, I kind of made that decision, okay, I'm not pursuing medical school because I had just sort of I didn't have the I lost the motivation to do that. I was sort of like, I just want to be done with school. I kind of, my aspirations going in quickly, the classes were hard, the material was hard. And so I kind of feel that at that time, I decided, like, that's it, I'm done. I just want to get done with the bachelor's and I just want to get out of here. And so once I graduated, I started feeling like, okay, like I'm done with school. I got like a entry level like science job working in a lab. And I didn't have. I started reflecting on some choices I had made and things that I had done in my life, and I started feeling like I didn't really have, you know, growing up. I was so involved in sports with gymnastics and cheerleading and track, and everything kind of just was gone. I had like yeah, I had done some amateur fitness shows earlier, like in my teens, and then but things kind of dropped off in that, like, graduated college, that weird period. And the trigger really was, I kind of started, like I said, reflecting on where I wanted to go with my life, and I decided, like, I'm better when I'm better all around in all aspects of my life when I'm very regimented and very, like, you know, pushing it with like time limits. And, I like to be very busy. I'm super type A, like crazy, crazy type A. It makes me just a better person. I'm more productive. And so I decided, you know what? Am I going to pursue fitness? I need to make a decision as I started to get into my mid 20s. Like, am I going to pursue it or not? Because, um, you have that like sweet spot of your physique and your body. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to see how far I can do it. I need to have like a purpose. I didn't feel that I had a purpose. I was at this, like, like I said, 9 to 5 lab job. I kind of just felt lost a little bit. And so the gym became sort of my purpose. It became my like therapy. It became, when I had a bad day, it was like I just wanted to get out of work and get to the gym, and I'd be there all night, like training and then practicing fitness skills. And um, I will say it took me quite a while to make that commitment to actually do a show. I think so. I graduated college in 2009, and then it wasn't until 2000. I did one show in about, I think it was like 2012, and I got last place. And so I was like, okay, I need to reset myself, figure out maybe what I'm doing wrong. What am I doing wrong? I got a lot of feedback from the judges, and I sat out again until 2014. And that's when I went and I ended up winning the nationals and got my pro card. Um, so yeah, it was that was kind of the trigger. It was just I felt kind of, and I will say once I got on track after 2012 when I placed last in that amateur show, it was kind of a wake up call too. It was like, I had been training for like 2 years and dieting, and I finally got the guts to go do a show, and I got last. So it was sort of, instead of giving up at that point, I decided, okay, I need to get some feedback. I need to see, what am I doing wrong? Is it my nutrition? Is it my training? Is it both? And that's when I started getting more into the science of this all. Because I just felt this, I was like, if I'm going to do it now, I want to do it, like, full on. So from that time of 2012 to 2014, I was able to make a lot of changes, to where I ended up winning my pro card.
Wow, that is awesome. And I mean, it just goes to show that it's just such a dedicated sport when it comes to the time that you're going to have to take into it. Because I mean, I always tell my friends, it's like, this is the one sport that you're not going to want to get into if you're in my generation where, everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where it's, just like, good luck with that. But that also sort of brings me into, the number one myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast. It's gotten better the last 5 years due to a lot of people being on social media and just realizing it. But there's still so many women that have that fear that, the moment they touch one dumbbell at the gym, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And first of all, I wish that would have happened to me, because I would spend my entire life savings to train with you then, because if that happened to you, I would be the first ever trillionaire probably. And, if I had that type of self-confidence, I would be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company right now instead of, doing this right now, although I do love doing this. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't have that fear, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
So, I honestly can say I never had that fear because I grew up, I will say, genetically, both of my parents are like shorter and they are muscular. My dad, like I said, previous was into bodybuilding and weightlifting. My mom was super athletic. And even as growing up in high school and things, I would get made fun of by some of the other girls, like that I had manly arms, that because I was always pretty muscular, and because of sports and my genetics, I was just a short, muscular, stockier build. And even like, the trendy like boots that girls wear that go, I can't zip one of those up over my calf to save my life. So, like back when I first started, I didn't have any concerns ever about, am I going to be too muscular? Am I going to put on too much? Because honestly, I always was a little more on the muscular, like thicker side. And I was really more excited to see how I could put on a little muscle and shape it to, you know, um, to make that aesthetic look that I aspired to have. So no, I was never afraid of that. And I also knew that that is a myth. I never believed that, like you said, you're gonna go like throw around some iron one day and then the next day look like Arnold. That's not how it works.
Still crossing my fingers, hoping that one day is going to happen to me.
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, I do. It is funny because I've had a lot of people over the years, people reach out, they want to know, like, I actually don't train people. I have another career that we can talk about in a little bit, but people, I get a lot of inquiries about like, oh, do you train people? Would you train me? Would you? And then, I have some friends that I've helped like on the side, just help them for fun, just people that aren't into competing but they want to get healthy. I help some of my friends and family with that kind of stuff. But a lot of times, you're right. I hear even people that are close to me, they'll say, well, I want to get healthy and I want to get in shape, but don't take this the wrong way. But I don't want to look like you. I don't, and I always think of the Arnold quote. I believe it was Arnold who, says, well, that's okay because you never will. Like I think that was him, that Arnold said that. It's sort of like, to look a certain way takes years and years and years and years of, so to be concerned about, you know, putting on all this muscle, and it doesn't offend me, by the way. None of that. I'm not one of those people. I have a very like pretty thick skin as far as with that, um when people say, I want to get in shape, but I don't know that I want to necessarily look like you. um, Sounds offensive, maybe, but it doesn't offend me. It's personal preference. I don't care what anyone else wants to look like, and I want to look the way I want to look. Whatever, everybody has a different idea of what's attractive to them for themselves, and I think that's great.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all about, and let's be honest. If that person does end up looking like Arnold after one day, you'll hire them as your trainer then, basically then. So
Exactly,
that's,
everybody would.
oh, everybody would too. And on top of that, I always love to bring up the fact that this affects women, I think, so much more positively than men. It impacts men as well too, but that confidence boost that we hear working out gives, especially women, is just so impactful. And out of the hundreds of guests that I've had on, that's one of the most important things that people like to preach about. And how are you able to take that confidence boost that working out's given you and use it to impact your life in a positive way? Because I've always figured out that that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your life.
Getting the confidence.
Or yeah, or just that added confidence boost, yeah, in general too, where people just feel a lot more just confident in their. It's for women too. Sometimes it's maybe they become more assertive, or just they just have a better level headed on their shoulders, where they just feel more confident in doing stuff.
Yeah, I think that part of it is, the physical things that happen, like physiologically in your body when you're exercising, when you're training, the cardiovascular benefits, the mental, emotional benefits. I can't tell you how many times, I've had like a terrible day or I feel that I've had a terrible day and I go to the gym and I do my workout and I'm fine after that. Like you said, it elevates you as a person, it elevates your mood, it elevates obviously your health, but it, the gym to me, I explain it to people as if you use it as like a therapy, it's really a life stabler. Like it's a life stabilizer. That's what I meant to say, a life stabilizer. Because when I'm on point in the gym with my training, when I'm on point with my health and my fitness with dieting, everything else in my life kind of is that much better. And the reason I think for it is because when you're physically at your best and you're healthy and you're happy with it affects all the other areas of your life. Um, and so I always say that, being healthy and fitness for me, it's my life stabilizer. Truly, it is. When I'm not prepping for a show or when as is with the COVID thing, how it all kind of derailed a lot. Um, I struggle to maintain a routine, when I don't have like I'm doing this show on this date and I'm a goal oriented person. And so like you're saying, I think the gym it does that for you. It keeps you on track in every area of your life.
I mean, 100%. And it just, yeah, I mean, it really, if there's one thing that teaches you how to be more time oriented, that's, I mean, this lifestyle is the number one thing because, I mean, in order to be one of those people where it's like, I have to get my workout in, you really need to make sacrifices and adjustments. But before we get into all that, I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast because everyone's on social media these days, and I hear this a million times, and I just want to strangle these people who are just like, oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. And it's like, first of all, you don't know how they got to that look. Some people are just born genetic freaks. I've had people on here who were born with a 12 pack basically, and I hate them more than life itself, where it's just like, you lucky, person. But, on top of that, whenever someone first gets started, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind. They have to train to oblivion before they get it to catch up. And for me, I mean, my back was the one thing that took off for me because I had jobs all throughout college of working warehouses where you either got a really nice back, you quit, but I'm also 6'3", so the moment that you mentioned your calves were normally just big, I wanted to cry almost because I was like, that is my legs are just absolutely shot. Where I mean, I could train them into oblivion. I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't grow an ounce. Calves don't even get me started. I could do 10,000 calf raises a day and they wouldn't even grow. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
So one of my problem areas, in my weaker areas, well, I have two. One I've made some progress on. Um, so my legs, in general, um, were a little bit of a weak area for me when I was starting out. Because honestly, some of it was because I'm 4'10". So I'm 4'10", but I have these gigantic muscular legs and I don't, when I first started, like you're saying at the very beginning, my legs were sort of a weakness for me because I had nice muscle on top, like shoulders, back, arms, everything. My abs were always good, but my legs were just, it was sort of my symmetry was off because, and also my legs, I could never get them lean enough. So it was sort of like I had these big legs, and it was either like my upper body needed to get bigger to match them, or my legs needed to come down. And so it was this constant battle of trying to, do I get bigger on top? But when you're very little, when you're 4'10", and sometimes too much size, you get that like bulldog effect they call it.
You don't want to topple over too. You got to have a balance point too.
Yeah, you don't want to look like if it depends on what division you're competing in. It depends on what your goal is. But for fitness, on a small frame, on someone who's 4'10", you don't really, you're standing next to some women who are 5'6", 5'7".
You don't want to be like Linda Murray if you're a fitness competitor.
Yeah, you don't want that muscle size, the same, right? So, and the other thing is, so you're being compared against in fitness specifically, very different physiques because everybody's very different and we're open in an open class. So you really have to just focus on your internal strengths and weaknesses and not really worry about who else looks like what, because it's really comparing apples to oranges. So you can't really. So for me it was always my legs, being too soft and too big for my upper body. As the years went on, I was trying to like lean down my legs while adding a little size to the upper body to try to quickly make it match. I was trying to like I was doing a lot of like hit circuits and trying to cardio, like burning out my legs, like high volume stuff, lighter weight, high volume, just trying to get some of this off. And then my upper body, I was trying to lift heavier and build some strength up in my top to put on a little muscle. um that strategy wasn't all that effective. You can't really do two things at once. I mean, I guess maybe some people can. It didn't really work well for me. um
I've had like two people that could do that out of the podcast. I have like 400. So yeah, it's very very rare.
Yeah, because a lot of it has to do with your diet. So, you can't be eating for strength and size up top, and that doesn't make sense. And you're trying to lose on the bottom. So, um, what I ended up really doing was I just kind of started focusing on, I was like, okay, even if my upper body suffers a little bit, I have to get my legs down. I have to get them better. They have to get better. So I just kind of put all my eggs in that basket. It was probably like 2017, 2018. I was like in process of just sticking to the plan to get these legs down. So it was like I was kind of in my own mind, like not that I didn't care what my upper body looked like, but I was like, let's do one thing at a time, So I was patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, yeah, so many people they just look at their body and they're just like, oh, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. Where it's like, yeah, just take it one step at a time because that's how I think a lot of people exhaust themselves. Because I've heard so many times. I have these friends of mine who they're those weekend warriors who they go into the gym and they do 3 hour workouts and then they last about a week and then they're like, screw this, I'm done. Where it's like, no, you got to pace yourself just at any level in this fitness industry, even if you're just a beginner and as opposed to a top tier bodybuilder. Yeah, you just got to pace yourself and figure out what works best there. But I mean, nutrition is the number one thing that I love to talk about because I mean that is 80 to 90% of these results that you're going to see. Those friends that I tell you about, I mean, there's still those people that they think that they can go at Burger King 3 or 4 times a week, and they'll still be in shape. And it's like, yeah, because we're 25 now. Call me in 10 years, like when they're your age, and that might not be working so well for them now because they're enjoying the last bit of their genetics, playing well for them that they're younger. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started taking things seriously? Because I mean, that is the one thing that people. I just think if they would focus on their nutrition so much more, it would make their journey so much easier for them.
You are spot on. I mean, honestly, so I've done probably every style of diet you can imagine, trying different things to see what worked for me. And I think that's the other thing that everyone always needs to keep in mind. When you're going to pursue a sport like this is not to me, it's a lifestyle. And I know people hear you say that all the time, and everyone, I think everyone kind of says that, and it sounds cliche, but in the end, it really is the truth because when you get involved in this sport at a high level, um, you're not just doing this 12 weeks out of the year because you'll never make it. You'll never succeed. It's got to be a full time thing. And so, what I started doing, um, when I first got my pro card, so around that time in 2014, I was on the keto bandwagon, which
One of those people, everyone. No, no, I'm just kidding.
no, no, I was on the keto bandwagon for like a year or two. And honestly, I would never do that again. It while it temporarily did, I that diet led me into nationals where I got my pro card. But I'm going to tell you what, based on that diet, and then over the years, where what I've finally gotten accustomed to is a carb cycling. um and that works. That's what works best for me, is doing a carb cycling. But when I was doing the keto versus the past 2 or 3 years that I've been doing the diet I do now, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but the biggest difference is the way that I feel. You can honestly, to do a show, like, you do either one? Sure, you know, but how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel like complete crap all the time, or do you want to feel, you know, like an athlete? And so I just, the keto thing worked for me at the time, but it's not sustainable. That's my belief. And not to knock anyone who does it, but it was not sustainable for me. It also mentally, I think that it had some, like, mental effects on me. Like, it mentally was not a good diet to be doing. I think I had a lot of, like, like, I was, like, mentally exhausted, very fatigued. I started having problems sleeping. Things, like, very strange. It just wasn't, I don't think my body didn't like it. It liked it, physically. It sucked all the fat off me, but it made me, I didn't like the way I felt. Um, and so I don't know if you hear that from other people, but I'm
You're like the 40th guest who's had that exact same answer every single time they said that they've started keto, where it's like, yeah, it helped me for like a year or so, but then after that, everything just went downhill. Where I think that's the general consensus. If anyone would ever recommend like the keto, if they ever asked me what I thought on the keto, I would say the same exact thing you're saying, where it's like, yeah, it's going to help you in the very beginning, but then after a while, it's not a sustainable diet to be on.
I agree. I agree. And so, yeah, I started kind of looking at different options, and then I actually gotten, I think it was 2018, I want to say, maybe the beginning of 2018. A very good friend of mine, she's actually a fellow IFBB fitness pro, um, Darian Borello. You may have heard of her.
I have
Um,
heard of her. Yeah, I've been trying. I'll try to get her on after this too, because I'm trying to. Yeah, I'll write her name down.
Yeah, but her and I have been friends for a long time. Even before we turned fitness pros, we're both from Pittsburgh, and she kind of reached out to me. She's training people. She's a trainer. She's into nutrition, and how I got into the carb cycling was essentially through her. She reached out to me and was like, "Let me help you. I want to help you with your diet. I think I want you to try a few things, and I think they'll work for you." And so, yeah, I started doing the carb cycling, and honestly, 2018, 19, and into 20 was the each year I was getting better and better and better. My physique is just, the other thing is, I mean, I truly believe in consistency over time and muscle maturity as well. So, I think as I'm getting a little older each year, that I'm being consistent, I'm getting, like, better results and better results and better results. So, it's not that, that's the other thing, people that want to do it short term, or you want to just, it doesn't work like that. This is like a very time, duration sport. Um, and so, yeah, but that's what I find works the most for me. I mean, I got to the point where, yeah, I was eating, like, on a high carb day, maybe about 300 grams of carbs, which is a lot for me.
Which, I mean, I always find this so funny that I have to explain to people that this is probably the one sport where as you get older, you actually get better. Where you'll see like some people that are in their 40s and 50s that they're at like their peak, whereas opposed, like baseball, where you're like 27, I think is the cutoff age. Where I mean, that's like you start to go downhill from then on. That's like your athletic peak. But yeah, I just that nutrition stuff. I mean, that's a podcast in and of itself that I've been working on, because it is just so important, and so many people, and it works different for so many people too. I mean, it's just your body, people's bodies are built differently. I mean, I still have, one of my dad's best friends. He's like 60 years old, and he's one of those. I don't even want to mention his name, but he's one of those people that he can eat, like 10 Snickers bars a day, and he won't gain an ounce of fat. Where it's just like,
Yeah.
I hope that God's playing a cruel joke on him, where one day he's going to wake up, like 400 pounds, but it hasn't happened yet. But, yeah, Bob, if you're hearing this, I'm calling you out, because he rubs it in too. Like, he'll send my dad some stuff of him just eating like a full, like, 10,000 calorie meal. Or I mean, it's just, I don't even know how he does it, but is just insane. But before we get into, how you're balancing your lifestyle, because that's something that I really think is so important. Let's be honest, we're on the basic opposite ends of the height spectrum, where I'm on the taller side and you're on the shorter side. I always tell people the gym is not made for someone who's 6'3". It's also not made for someone who's 4'10". So what are some ways that you sort of like to compensate for that fact? Because I mean, even for me, I sometimes got to put the bar down to like the lowest that it can go, just so that I can do it. Like if I'm doing a lat pull down, the seat's got to go down almost as low to the ground, just so that I can do it. But what are some things that you do to sort of compensate for that? Because I always just find that so fascinating when I have, whenever I see shorter people in the gym, or whenever I see a guy that's even taller than me, it's like, how are you even able to cope with this?
Great question. Yeah, well, I use like, so on like the leg press, things like that. If I need, I always laugh and I say it's like I need my booster seat. I'll get like a foam pad or foam blocks. I use those quite a bit to like bump myself up to where I need to be. There's honestly some machines that just cannot be manipulated for me. So, I just find a comparable exercise. A like lat pull down, for instance, even if I had, I put the seat all the way up and then I have to stand on the seat to
Oh,
grab the bar.
you can just use it as a pull up bar basically. Then if you're 4'10", a lat pull down, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I usually have to stand on the seat to like get it to actually even pull it down. Or, if my boyfriend trains with me a lot, he's always very helpful with some of those type of things I can't reach and whatnot. And, um, yeah, so things like that. You need a helper. Like even honestly, if I'm training in the gym, I usually have to tap somebody on the shoulder and see if they can move this down. Like the cable machines. Hey, like, can you move this down for me? I can't. Otherwise I have to like go and get like a block or something. So yeah, you rely on others and yeah, you do what you can.
I mean, one of the most I mean, I can't even come up with the word with it. But one of the most ridiculous conversation I've ever had was I had a guy who was 7'2" on the podcast who's a bodybuilder, and just he had to have his own private gym built for him basically then, because he couldn't do anything because he was just so tall. So yeah, I mean, the optimal height for bodybuilding I'd probably say is around like 5'6". I mean, that's where everything was built for you, and you're perfect for that. So yeah, that's amazing. But I mean, let's get into the meat and the thick of things. I mean, let's be honest. You have a job, like you said, that you work sometimes like 60 hours a week, and you're still able to do this lifestyle. I mean, your time management must be just insane. But how are you able to balance that? Because I mean, I have some weeks where I have a full time job in and of itself too, and I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder, but I work out like 4 or 5 times a week, and then I do this podcast. But what is your time management like, and how are you able to balance all this stuff?
Yeah, so I do. I have a job. I work. I've been doing it for about 10 years now. So I'm a clinical trial monitor. I work in oncology research. So I basically sort of like an auditing type of position, but I monitor patient safety for clinical trials for investigational new drugs, all chemotherapy, immunotherapy, all the new stuff that's coming out for the cancer treatment. And so I travel a lot. Um, I usually am assigned different studies, and so I might have 19 to 20 hospitals at a time. And so I'm visiting those hospitals like one every week, on a rotation. So I'm traveling every week. Obviously, with COVID, we've been doing a lot of remote stuff, so that's been pretty nice. But it will go back eventually. But all the shows, all the preps I've done, I traveled every single week. And really, I think the biggest key that I've learned is planning. Number one, planning. You have to have a strategy, you have to have a plan. Um, and it's not only having a plan, it's also executing it. You know, for me, it's a lot of, you know, usually I plan my week like on Sunday, see, where am I traveling? What am I doing this week? And you have to figure out, okay, like when you have flights and different things, when am I going to get my cardio in? When am I going to train? When am I going to practice my routine? Because fitness, we have the routine also. And so it's a lot. The time management for me is more of, it's just planning. Um, you know, Sometimes you may have to, every day is going to be different, which I like. I will say I don't have a lot of consistency, and I'm not one of those people that can like every day at 7 a.m. I can work out. That's not possible for me. So sometimes it's 7 a.m., sometimes it's noon, sometimes it's 8 p.m. It depends on the day. Um, but that's why, like I said, planning is super important, and then executing it with food, same thing. Really making sure you make your meals. You have to. For me, with traveling, I would usually make food on Sunday. That whole thing, and a lot of times you'd be surprised what when you're traveling as much as I do, what you can find. You could Google wherever you're going the nearest grocery store. You can stay in a hotel that has a little like kitchenette, and you can so I would do that, but it's also that takes planning. You have to see like, okay, where are you going? Find the grocery store, find this, but it's doable. It's doable. I think what it comes down to is you have to want to do it. you know I think the excuse of people, with time, saying like, oh, I don't have time, like you said, you have a full-time job, you do the podcast, you go to the gym, um I think what it comes down to is, um do you like, what are your priorities, what is really important to you? I mean, there's days when I think, oh, I'm never going to have time to do my cardio. But if you actually sit and think about what you do in a day, you can eliminate the 30 minutes you scroll on Instagram. You can eliminate the 15 minutes that you might be in the morning and the night laying in the bed like, oh, I don't want to get up. Like, you can make it work. There are I think a lot of it is taking responsibility and owning that. It's really hard, I think, to crack down on yourself sometimes. I think people struggle with that, but time managing your time when you have a lot going on, especially like getting ready for the Olympia and also working 60 hours a week, you know if you really are hard on yourself and you look at and you say, okay, I'm making excuses for why I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, and I can fit that in somewhere. And again, that goes back to planning and, um, being able to really not let yourself slide. Like, I think people, I do it sometimes too. I'm not perfect, um, but we let ourselves slide, I think, a lot more. I always give the example of, if, say you make plans to go to dinner with someone and that person cancels on you, you're going to be probably pretty, not happy about it, mad. You're like, you wanted them to follow through, right? And a lot of times when those situations come up and we're the one that we should be, upset with because we didn't follow through, we let ourselves slide. We're like, well, it's okay because I had to take grandma to the grocery store and I had to do this. And you make things up to make it, you justify why you're not doing something. So I think the first step too is just really being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Honesty is the most important thing in more things than just, your average everyday life, especially with, health and fitness. And two of the questions that I love to ask, and they stack on to, the time that you need too is, I mean, let's be honest, the most important thing when it comes to this lifestyle is sleep. I don't care what anyone says. If anyone disagrees with that, I always tell them pull an all-nighter and then try to go to the gym and tell me what happens. I did that twice in college and I lasted about halfway through the workouts and I just said, screw this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to sleep. But what does your sleep schedule look like? Because like you told me, I mean, there are days where you might be working out at 7 a.m., you might be working out at 8 p.m. I mean, it's just so different every day, and you don't have that set schedule where it's like, as soon as you mentioned that, I was like, I'd feel bad for some of the like the ex-military people that I have on, where like literally if they're not working out by 7 o'clock, if it's 7:01, they're about to go crazy. So that's just a whole different podcast. But so what does your sleep schedule look like? Because I'm more of a night owl personally myself, where I mean, even getting up to do this podcast, I got up about an hour ahead of time, and I was just like, I stay up late editing these podcasts normally, but what does your proper amount of sleep look like? And I mean, is there anything that you do to get that proper amount? Because I mean, let's be honest, in this day and age with technology, so many people struggle to find that proper amount of sleep.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sleep is huge. And I'm one of those people that if I don't get enough sleep, um, I struggle. Like with the entire day, I struggle. I will get my stuff done for them, usually, but it's very miserable. Um, and so sleep for me looks a little bit like right now, I will say over the last year, I was able to get, with traveling less because of COVID, I'm able to get, I've gotten into a place where, I go to bed around 11:30 and I'm up at 8. And that's about, I need like 8 to 9 hours of sleep. That's my optimal, like I know some people are good with 6, some people, I need like 8 to 9. I mean, 10 is actually like ideal.
I had someone who needed 4 hours, and I was like, I hate you more than anything. Like, if I could function properly and still get like gains and stuff on 4 hours, oh,
Yeah, I need it. And I think sleep is super, as you said, like for recovery. I've learned over the years that, like you said, the more sleep I've been getting, as I've got, because when I first started doing this and I was younger, I was getting the 4 to 6 hours or whatever. We all, when we're younger, you stay up late, you don't really care. But as I've gotten older, I will say that I know that getting more sleep has helped me in this sport for sure. I've had days even, training like going into Olympia or Arnold or one of the big shows where I had been just really hitting it hard, and then maybe on a Sunday, I literally sleep, I'll just sleep the whole day. Sleep. Just like, okay, this is part of my prep. I need this day to just sleep, like on and off. And honestly, sometimes you need it. You have to listen to your body. I do. I really listen to my body with sleep even during the day, now that I've been working remotely, it's been nice because I feel like I'm catching up on my, you know, maybe, I'm catching up on creating a routine, which I should have done years and years and years ago. So I'm hoping that when things kind of go back and I start traveling again, that I can stick to, um, in the past, it was difficult. It would depend. A lot of times I was sleeping in hotels because of work. Um, and so sometimes it would be hard for me to fall asleep. And then I would have to get up early because to do cardio or train because maybe I had to be at the hospital at 9 a.m. And then maybe right after my work day, I was gonna go back to the airport and like be flying somewhere. So the workout had to be in the morning. So I've had nights where I cut it short. Um, but my rule of thumb over the last year is like it's like 11:30, and then I get up about 8. Um, I need the 8 to 9 hours. And I agree with you. If you don't, um, I feel like it's helped me, I think more mentally, than anything.
oh, I mean, the one thing that this sport has taught me, and just talking to people, is that the mind is such a powerful thing. But I've always said one of the best feelings on the planet is when you like have that really hard day of training, and then you get that proper like 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and you wake up feeling like a superhero. Basically, you just wake up feeling so well rested. I always, I feel like I could kick my door in. I'm not going to do that. But you just feel so good, and especially after a leg day. Don't even get me started. If I get the proper amount of sleep after a leg day, I mean, I could hop to the moon. Basically, that's what I feel like. But again, I'm not going to try that, but let's be honest, cardio is my number one trigger word. I hate it more than life itself. I mean, just saying that, my legs are starting to shake a little bit right now. Where I mean, it comes a lot from baseball, where being a pitcher, you had to run all the time because you had to get your lower body nice and strong. But you know, unfortunately, with this lifestyle, you are going to have to be doing a lot of cardio, and you need to come to terms with that. But what is your relationship with cardio like currently now? And has it been something that you've struggled with, or is it something that you just take it with a grain of salt, basically, where you just realize that it's a big part of the lifestyle?
Yeah, cardio doesn't really bother me. I mean, it's never been something that I don't love it, but I don't hate it. As you said, I sort of take it as it's part of my job, you know. With the sport, it's just part of the sport. And honestly, I've learned over the years that um, if you're really on point with your diet, you know, cardio becomes a little less of a pain in your ass. I mean, the times years and years ago before I got really serious, I did so much cardio because I thought that I was making up for like meals that I ate or things, but it doesn't work that way. And so as I learned more about the sport and grew and evolved, and got into more of the science aspect of it the past couple years, you learn that if you want to train smarter, not necessarily harder. Um, And that's what I've learned. I will say the last 2 years, the preps that I did was the least cardio I've ever done. And though this was the best I've looked the last 2 seasons. Um, right now my cardio, so the last show I did was the Arnold in 2020, so about exactly a year ago. I decided to sit out the rest of the season, and I didn't do anything else. With COVID, a lot of the shows were canceled, and some of the ones that did happen, I had some nagging injuries that I had been competing. I did 5 and 6 shows for like 3 years straight, so I needed a break anyway. So it kind of came at a good time. I just decided, I'm gonna going into the Arnold, I was dealing with a pretty serious foot injury, and I pushed through and I made it and I did it, and it was great. I was happy, but it was like, okay, I need to stop for a little while. So, my relationship with cardio since then has become, I do cardio maybe 4 days a week right now. 30 minutes. I'm like not, I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's kind of like a maintenance, because I know once I decide I'm going to start prepping, I'll switch it up to where I might do some like fasted sessions, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. I'll do a fasted session. Um, and then I'll add in some hits. I like to do hit like stair climber, some hits on there. I do spinning. I love the spinning bike because it's very easy on my joints and on my foot. Um, but yeah, right now I'm kind of like that 30 minutes incline walking, maybe some running, just like a maintenance phase.
Well, and I do it where I do like I sometimes might do like 80 minutes of just walking where I'll get like 7 miles in, and it's just I just watch a movie during that, because let's be honest, beach season is coming up, and now that a lot of people are getting vaccinated, just in case I got to be in shape, just in case, because who knows, we might go into lockdowns again, but just on the off chance that I am going to be able to go outside with people, I gotta be ready for that. But if
I
someone
hear
were to
you.
oh yeah, I mean, don't even, I mean, with this weather outside right now, I'm like, oh god, I need to lose that 10 extra pounds of COVID weight if only I'd done that, right now. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Sarah, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. One thing about the sport of bodybuilding. I think the biggest thing I would like to see changed is I think I would like to see the professional sport of bodybuilding be a little more mainstream. Like if I could change anything, I would say I talk about this a lot with my boyfriend. We're always like, I say we're professional athletes. And the IFBB treats us great. They treat us wonderfully. They take good care of the athletes. I think the disconnect lies with the fact that the bodybuilding world like we're disconnected from like the mainstream, and I would
I
change
always
that.
make the comparison where it used to be on ESPN for the finals. They used to have it on where you could like
Yeah,
actually watch them. Now what do they have? Cornhole. Which, I mean, being from the Midwest, I'm never going to say a bad thing about cornhole, but I mean, it takes a little bit more of an athletic prowess to be a bodybuilder, I'd say, than to be able to just toss a bag into a hole.
yeah. I think that um, that's what I would change. If I could change anything about the sport, it would be that if you look at all the other professional sports out there, I think that there's a difference in other professional leagues and how our professional like how professional bodybuilders are perceived. So I would change that somehow. I don't know how. I mean, I know that they've been trying to get exposure and get out there, but I think maybe because the sport is a little more taboo than some of the other, that could be what is holding it back. But that's what I would change.
Yeah, those cornhole athletes, they're not going to really need to be looked at for any of their physical prowesses or anything like that. So I think it's a little bit safer for ESPN to broadcast where, but no, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, they should get it like back on ESPN or something, because so many people just don't understand that. I mean, your favorite athletes that you watch compete in like baseball, basketball, or football, these bodybuilders, most of them work out even harder than these people do, and it's just so impressive to see what the body can do. And that's why I started this podcast, and when I first had up and coming bands and musicians, that's why I decided to give bodybuilding a shot for guest wise, because I mean they're so underappreciated, I think, and because the general consensus whenever I ask someone, it's like, oh, what are your opinions on bodybuilding? This is the response that I hear. Oh, those are the people that just work out a lot and just go on stage and pose, right? And it's like, well, you got about 1% of the lifestyle, and you got a couple of the basic things, but it's just so much more than that. And so I love to talk about that. But if we were to talk to you, Sarah, a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
Yeah, a year from today, one of my I have a few more big goals with fitness left before I hang it up. I'm 35, so a year from today, I mean, I I would love, one of my goals was always to be able to, compete at an international event. I mean, I've been to Canada, like, I'm not talking about the Canadian, but one of my goals is, there's a lot of shows, like, there was always, like, the Arnold Australia and some of the other international events. I've never got the opportunity. I was invited to the Arnold Australia, but I wasn't able to go that year. Um, and so, yeah, I think one of my goals is definitely to be in some type of an international event that's not held here, or Canada. I've been to the Canadian shows, which are they're wonderful too, but I would like to just go kind of see what it's like outside of, you know, North America. Um, and meet athletes. Not that I don't get to meet international athletes here, but I think it's just a different vibe. So that's something I definitely want to do. And I also, one of my nagging goals that's been a goal for a long time, I obviously would love to get um, a top five placing at either the Olympia or Arnold or both. Um, the past 2 years in a row that I did the Arnold, I was seventh. So I'm like right there. And so, like, I'm not stopping, until I break into that top five. That's a major goal. I mean, obviously the Olympia too. Um, Yeah, those are probably my fitness goals. As far as personal, I mean, I'm in school right now for my master's. So I want to complete my master's degree, which is I have about a year left. So I want to get that under my belt and hopefully move. I'm hopefully trying to move up. I want to get promoted at work. That's part of the reason I pursued the master's. I'm really passionate about leadership, and I want to get into some leadership opportunities with my career. So those are like some of my bigger goals.
That is awesome. And I gotta say, yeah, if you ever do get invited back to go to Australia again, do it. Just from the Aussie guests that I've had on, that accent in and of itself is just they're the greatest to tell. Like, if you ever want to see anyone, go when I have Rose Black on. I've had her on twice. She has I can't even do her Aussie accent justice, but it's like it's just. I even told her, I was like, you're gonna talk the entire time, and I'm just gonna listen because it's like chocolate melting in your ear, basically, where you're just. Oh, it is just so perfect. But yeah, and that's great too. But being that you are in New Jersey, I had to ask this because every single guest that I've had on from New Jersey. So, have you seen any Guidos in the gyms that you go to?
Honestly, they're everywhere.
Okay, good. I was gonna say because the moment that you said New Jersey, I was like, oh my god, Jersey Shore. I was like, please tell me that she runs into Guidos in the gym because that's like I've been to Jersey a couple of times, but I've never like stopped to go to a gym. I was a lot younger when my family would just take vacations on the East Coast. So yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's yeah, I would be I
I
would
mean,
just laugh. I would laugh though, so I'd probably get in trouble. So like I couldn't do that now because I would just take one look at them and just be like, okay, I'm trying not to laugh. I'm trying not to laugh.
well, I'm in North Jersey, so like I'm pretty far away from like the Jersey Shore, like where kind of where all of that stereotype and gets its, you know. But you do see there's a lot of I mean, the whole state. I feel there's, especially on the coast and into down into the shore. Obviously, Italian.
Hey, I'm a little Italian myself, but I'm way more Norwegian, so that's why I have this pure white skin, basically. Where as you can tell, look at the sun. The sunlight just reflects off me, and it's just like it's not even.
I'm
It's not even
super the
fun.
same. I'm so
Yeah,
pale.
yeah. Which okay, so before we wrap it up, then I gotta ask. So with that tan that you put on, how many layers do you have to have? Because that's another reason why I never competed was that I would have to be at least like a 10 or 11 layer guy just to be able to get any semblance of it. Just because I am so white that it is just it's distracting sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm like usually 3 coats. Yeah, it's not crazy. No, but I'm super super light skinned and pale, and um even especially now, being out in like isolation from COVID, and obviously being in Jersey um in the winter, you're not getting much sun.
Yeah, I either get burnt to an absolute crisp or I get farmer's tan, where let's be honest, that is not a real tan. But before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Um yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of help over the years from people, my one of the first, who used to teach me how to pose and helps, kind of just get me really passionate about the sport, was, I mentioned him earlier, was Gary Udit. Um, Definitely big thanks to him for everything he's ever done for me. Again, I mentioned Darian Borello. She's helped me with a lot over the past two years, and she's a good friend of mine. Honestly, I want to shout out to all the IFBB fitness pros because we're all very good friends. Rael Graber, who she's retired from competing now, but she also has helped me quite a bit. Um, and we're very good friends. So they've all helped me. My boyfriend Ray, he for the past few years, he's been at every workout, every fitness practice. Um, helps me with food, does pretty much some of the things that I struggle to with being so busy. What we were talking about earlier. He's been a huge help. He motivates me when sometimes, days that I'm struggling. He makes sure I get it done. He motivates me, and so that's helpful, and that's actually brings me to one last point about it is, all these people I'm saying, thank you to. Obviously, my parents, they're amazing. They're always, and my brother, they come to a lot of the shows and they make the trips and always supported me in the sport. Um, but I think that this is a sport that you truly need a lot of good people around you. It's not, even though, I go up there and I'm standing there, like what has occurred to that point is so much more than I'm just really displaying like everybody's work who helped me. You have people that make your suits, you have people that do your routines, I mean, I wouldn't be here in this position without all of these people. It's actually is a team sport. Um, and so, yeah, just everybody who's helped me.
When especially having that family support too, because one of the questions that I always ask is, what was your family's opinion? We know that they were really supportive of you, and that's a big contributor to whether or not you're going to be successful. Is because I mean, this lifestyle gets so much harder if you don't have that support. So that is amazing. But again, you guys, everyone, go and give Sara a follow. I'll leave her Instagram page down below. Now, buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and, get in shape just by taking a few looks at her. And, again, it's just so great to have you on and to share your journey. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful. I love talking about health and fitness, and I appreciate you supporting all the athletes.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have you on again next year, and you can talk about how you got top 5 at the Olympia and at the Arnold, and fingers crossed there. But yeah, that is just so awesome. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.